You can't talk about preventing sexual violence without naming what the good thing is, right? What safe and equitable relationships are. You can't talk about what safe and equitable sexual or romantic relationships are without defining what physical and emotional intimacy is, what sex is, what consent is, what our rights to bodily autonomy and healthcare are. You can't talk about child abuse prevention without talking about body parts, without talking about healthy relationships and boundaries. What safe and equitable relationships look like, feel like, sound like with other kids, with family members, with other adults. In other words, you can't say just avoid something, what we've been doing for decades in the sex ed world, without saying what safe and equitable relationships are, what our rights are, and where we can access healthcare. By exploring questions such as kind of what responsibilities do we have to each other, to our friends, to our family, to our larger communities, how do we promote equity in our own relationships, in our families, and in our communities, and how do we navigate challenging emotions and conflict? The research really shows that the most powerful violence prevention message is really that everyone in our communities, folks from all genders, from all backgrounds, from all cultures and abilities, all deserve mutual respect and kindness. This is the way we all come together and work towards creating in Oregon a world that is truly violence-free. And I don't find that we often think about violence prevention in such a broad and beautiful way. Comprehensive sexuality education supports young people to reflect on and promote their own health and well-being, to explore what's safe and equitable, what are safe and equitable relationships, what type of relationships do they want in their lives, and how do they contribute to communities that they want to be a part of, right? Sex ed covers so much. Piece of research that I draw a lot from, it looked at 30 years of research about kind of the most impactful topics that sex ed promotes. And one part of that study really showed how the most impactful messages to prevent violence in sex ed are about social justice, equity, and shifting norms around domestic violence and gender roles and conflict management skills. So those are kind of the three really most important topics when it comes to really that upstream messaging around violence prevention. Of course, it can look a million different ways, but some examples include in elementary school, students can start learning positive ways to express their emotions, their values, and their boundaries. Educators can encourage positive identity development and explore similarities and differences between and amongst each other. Because we know feeling good is an early prevention approach, right? Feeling good about yourself is an early prevention message. And we know that connecting young people to communities around them, to their cultures, to their identities is a protective factor against violence. So K-5 is really solidifying yourself, who you are, your friendships, your connections, knowing how to navigate the complex world of emotions, and knowing that you have trusted adults and people around you to support you. Middle school, students can learn skills like how to recognize healthy and unhealthy relationships, how to seek help from trusted adults, how to communicate consent. Students can even identify how violence is normalized in culture, how to think critically about that, how to analyze what that looks like, and how to change or to be antidotes to those messages. So middle school, you see gaining some complexity and media analysis skills in order to really change that culture, that long game again. And to really shift norms about what's okay and how we treat each other, and how to stand up for each other if we see something not reflecting those values. In high school, students can practice skills to build and maintain mutually supportive, equitable, and nonviolent relationships, learn strategies for recognizing, avoiding, and ending unhealthy ones, and again, analyzing media and cultural messages around relationships, violence, and sexuality with a critical lens. We have the chance to really kind of plant these seeds for students to think critically about oppression and inequity, and how that also leads to violence and bullying in our schools and in our society at large. If we start setting these messages early for young people, we're really changing the world. And there's more research also that shows that when we do present these pieces of information and start developing these skills in young people early, they're more likely to use them with confidence and consistency later in life. So starting in kindergarten is very necessary. And you scaffold, you build throughout the K-12 experience. And that's why sex ed is such a critical cornerstone to violence prevention work. From how to communicate needs and values, to skills to identify and develop healthy relationships, to practice setting and respecting boundaries, to learning that we all have rights and that we all are worthy of respect and dignity, and so much more. These are all critical pieces of preventing violence and abuse, right? These are core messages to really play that long game that changes our culture and our norms, that promote safety, respect, kindness, and really the end of violence. It's really about culture and systems and norms. It's about celebrating one another. It's about being in community with one another. It's about us cohering and developing social norms that encourage healthy relationships, equitable relationships, and sexuality. And that's what sex ed is.